when it comes to the unity of Somalia, where does the British government stand?
So for the UK, I think there'll always be a soft spot for Somaliland. We have a common history and many people here have spent time there and engaged with Somaliland. In terms of independence, I think our position is pretty well established, and it's really for the Somali people to determine what happens. We think it's really important to have a constructive dialogue and increase cooperation. And I was really pleased to see the President's statement that he was opening up talks with Hargeisa. So I think that's a really positive development and something that we would be supporting.
But those talks in Dubai, it took place in Turkey, and took place in Djibouti, often ends up with no fruits at all. So the talks is one thing, but when it comes to the British government, because the argument Somalilanders put forward is that they have peace and stability for 23 years. 4 different elections took place, democratic elections, especially the last 2. Why wouldn't you recognize them if that is their wish, since you have soft support for them?
So the first thing to stress is that Somaliland has achieved a huge amount, and you've mentioned some of those things, and I think it is an impressive achievement in the circumstances. But it's not just down to the UK to pronounce one way or the other. I think there are lots of areas still that need to be worked on. There are still areas of dispute there, and there are a lot of areas of cooperation that would need to be worked out if independence was on the cards. So the most important thing is not what location talks are in, but I think having a process that makes progress, that builds trust, and that can lead to really active areas of cooperation.
If Somaliland is willing to be independent, there is the people who also live in that region who do not want to be independent. And at the moment they don't seem to have a voice. They want to be a united Somalia as we know it. Those people, they often accuse the Somaliland government for being oppressive, for not giving them opportunity to express themselves. Would you engage a dialogue with the authority in Somaliland to make sure those people are not oppressed, in particular people of Khartoum?
So I think this is exactly the thing that I was talking about, that it's easy to talk about Somaliland being independent now, but there are a lot of issues still, including Khartoum State, which have to be worked out and resolved as well, including with the federal government.
Right. Once again, let me put it in a different way. If I know the last parliament here was not keen to recognize Somaliland. I interviewed William Hague, he says we're not going to recognize Somaliland. And Mark Seaman, who was the African Foreign Minister at the time. What is the situation now in this new parliament? David Cameron is re-elected. What is the British point of view of Somali being united once again? In other words, the north and the south being at one. Would you support that?
So I think our position is, as I said, which is that we're not going to say that it has to be united, but neither are we going to advocate for independence. This is something that needs to be worked out properly. Right now, we're not at that moment of declaration of independence, but what the government is clear on is that we want to support that dialogue and that cooperation. Right.
The other things I would like to ask you is the neighbouring countries and involvement in Somalia. I know many meetings that you went with Somalis. The issue of Ethiopia and Kenya come up time and again. Ethiopian soldiers are responsible, as people say, we cannot verify, a crime against humanity in various different places in Somalia. Yet, they have your support. Western support, international community support them to be there and giving them a blind check to carry on what they do or being accused. So my question to you is, what do you be able to, when you get Somalia, speak to the Ethiopian and the AMISOM forces to make sure that they don't abuse the very same people they're supposed to protect?
So you've raised a really important point, and it is something that a lot of the diaspora community have raised as well. And I think it's a difficult one, because when you have neighbours inside your country, it can be incredibly delicate. So yes, the British government is absolutely clear that abuses of civilians by AMISOM, by other troops, is not acceptable. And we're playing an active role in training AMISOM troops pre-deployment in human rights and in trying to prevent, for example, sexual abuses against women. Having said that, I do want to say that overall AMISOM has played a critical role in trying to bring stability to Somalia and in tackling al-Shabaab. And as we saw from the incident in Lego, it's a very unsafe place and very dangerous for the soldiers there. So we have to make sure that their presence is a constructive one and that it doesn't contribute to any instability or any abuses. But I think it is important that we recognise what they have achieved as well. And obviously there's always room for improvement, and I'll be talking about that too.
Right. What is your message to the Somali community?
So my message to the Somali community is the British government is absolutely committed to the future of Somalia. We're here to help, and that's what my mandate is.
Harriet Matthews, thank you very much for being with us.
Real pleasure. Thank you
very much.
tahay wuxuusnimadii ka baxay wasiiraan leeyahayo wistaa ii mara carrada wareerka aad sheegatana war iyo waaya u malihi wanaag baan ku wadacay warkuna waa kooban yahay wadaynimaka ma rabo waddankaana iska leh aan kala weydaaranne waraabo maalin wacan oogii kale waxaan lahaa